Is the big one coming? In a psychic forecast, I'm going to dive into the relationship between solar activity and the recent solar storms with things like earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and what that solar activity is looking like in the future and how that's going to affect the Earth, as well as how it's going to affect terrestrial weather. Yes, solar activity affects weather patterns here on planet Earth. So, yes, space weather does affect that. So here's why. We'll explain that in just a second. Also, we'll talk about the recent solar storms and how that is catalyzing spiritual awakening and mass spiritual awakening that's going to drive great changes here on this planet. So the sun's been going crazy lately. We've had 2 coronal mass ejections back to back the last couple of days. I'm filming this on June the 3rd, as well as a coronal hole that streamed very high velocity solar winds. And the corona is basically made up of plasma. It's super, super hot, which are ions, protons and electrons. Well, protons and electrons. And there's also been filament ejection. So the sun's been really, really active lately. And also, the Earth has been going nuts also. We just had the earthquake at Etna in Italy. We had 2 strong earthquakes in the last few days off the coast of Japan. There's been increased activity around Yellowstone and in Idaho and around Washington State and off the coast of Washington, around the New Madrid Fault, in the Aegean Sea. And all of those were mentioned in recent psychic forecasts that these areas would get active even before these solar flares ignited. Also, an area that I didn't forecast that's come to my attention is the area, say, east of New Zealand. So that area, anywhere in the Pacific Ring of Fire, is lit up. It's charged up now. And the solar activity, these solar storms, it's energy that affects the Earth. It affects the movement within the planet, and it enhances this type of activity. So what's going on? Think of the sun as a spiritual lens that expresses shifts in multidimensional reality. And all things come from the sun, right? And the sun comes from the cosmos. So not only does the sun maintain physical life and give us light, obviously, but it feeds cosmic energy into our collective field, basically. The sun's energy is not constant. It ebbs and flows. And these changes provide an energetic language that helps drive life on Earth. During these times of high solar activity, activations of higher consciousness occur in the collective field, which precipitates awakening and opening up to new information, as well as creates, like I said, more energy in the Earth that increases global issues. So these are all coded frequencies that change the physical on a quantum level, which over time changes reality on a macro level. They also trigger DNA awakening and activation of higher spiritual knowledge and gift. And these solar storms bring big plasma or ionic streams to the Earth's atmosphere, to the upper atmosphere, and the Earth herself responds to that, and it triggers movement within the Earth, as well as enhances the weather systems. As a side note, scientists observed this and created HARP generators, spelled HAARP, which can produce artificial auroras, and as well, we'll say theoretically, can influence the weather because the sun is a giant HARP generator in a way that produces auroras and affects the energies within the upper atmosphere and in the troposphere where the weather happens, basically. So this also, so it can modify the weather, basically. And the effects of human consciousness with these storms precipitates opening to higher spiritual knowledge and awakening. The stronger the solar storms, the stronger the effects are on consciousness as well as on the Earth. So recently the sun's been going nuts. Large coronal holes, 2 CMEs, coronal mass ejections from flares from different sunspot groups brought us up to G4 storm conditions. G5 is the high. So this was very strong activity. But the resulting auroras may have seemed underwhelming, and this is a key point to understand, and I'm going to explain why. So given the strength of these storms, there was auroras, but it was underwhelming here in mid-latitude. So does that mean the effects on the Earth were diminished because the auroras were less despite the strength of the storms? Actually, it's quite the opposite. It all comes down to the interplanetary magnetic field and how that interacts with the ionosphere, which is known to aurora enthusiasts as the BZ. When the BZ is negative, that means that there's a south-facing magnetic stream that disrupts the plasma flow, and the magnetosphere scatters it, and we get those beautiful auroras from that. However, for the majority of this particular storm, the BZ was positive, or it was north-facing, which doesn't allow the auroras to form as much, but that doesn't mean that the storm was any less. Of course, this all happens in combination with other factors like solar wind. There's a lot of other factors, and I'm not going to go into today. And I have to give a shout out to Stefan Burns, geophysicist, because he provides some really great information for us on YouTube, and I got a lot of my notes from his videos and other people that I've researched. I wanted to give him a shout out before I go on. Now, the BZ is always in constant flux. So even though these solar flares happen during a positive BC or a north-facing field, it flipped a few times. It's always going to flip. And when it flipped, that's when we had the substorms and we had bouts of nice auroras, even if it was underwhelming. So that happened. However, when the BZ is positive, it strengthens what's known as the Birkeland field, which allows the energies of the solar flares, so it allows the ionic energies, the plasma fields, to flow more easily from the magnetosphere to the ionosphere. Rather than getting scattered and producing the northern lights, it allows it to penetrate through the Birkeland field, through the ionosphere, then down to the planet, which strengthens the effects on geology, on weather, and on consciousness, enhancing the effects of the solar wind or plasma field on our consciousness, thus intensifying the effects. So in other words, what was a bummer for mid-latitude aurora enthusiasts was a boon for spiritual ascension and consciousness, basically. And these effects are going to carry on for the next few months. So this is going to be, as I forecasted in several other past forecasts, this is going to be a big period of lots of spikes of spiritual awakening. You may be next, where you start to realize that everything's aligned, that we're really energetic beings, and that we're really expressing Spirit's knowledge and wisdom through our human form, rather than being just human and cut off from Spirit, basically. So I predicted big spikes in spiritual awakening, all right, for this time, as well as big spikes in earthquakes, volcanoes, earth changes, in recent prediction and recent videos that I've done here on the channel. So this latest solar storm is one of the major players bringing my psychic prediction into reality. So thanks to the solar storms, these predictions, some of them are already verified, some of them are in process to do so. So the sun's poles just flipped recently, which means we're really at the solar max. It's an 11-year solar cycle. And it means we still have another 12 to maybe 18 months of heightened solar activity, which is plenty of time for more light code transmissions from the sun to affect our fields and to help enhance and raise consciousness, as well as create lots of changes on the planet. Though this period will likely remain active for solar storms, as well as geological events precipitating global awakening and global changes. Now's the time to really cleanse and clear your body. So we just got hit with all this plasmic energies. It likely affected your sleep, how you feel, and stuff like that. As this higher energy moves through you and enhances the flows within and around your body and in between the atoms and molecules of your body. It's chi and prana, and it enhances your field, but it also helps to clear stuck energy, which could be your shadow aspects, suppressed traumas, blockages in your physical and energetic bodies. So with this higher energy, it's clearing that, and you may get symptoms from that. So there's a purging that's happening now over the next several days to maybe a couple of weeks. So do some fasting or drink lots of water, basically. So cleanse and clear your bodies, do shadow work to purge, do more spiritual exercises now. This is the awakening, the transition to 5D or ascended consciousness. So, so in any event, where are the rest of my notes? All right. So any event, these are so basically do that and do double down on your spiritual work. And if you've been doing the work already, this is going to be, easier. But either way, there's a lot of growth and a lot of ascension that's happening. And looking down the road a little bit, on the back face side of the sun, there's been some solar flares recently, and those sunspots are going to rotate in the next few days around. So we may have some more activity. And look out around the solstice. We have a grand cross, and the planetary aspects actually can enhance the solar winds, just like this last one was fueled by a Mercury was right behind the sun, so Mercury and Sun were in direct conjunction during these last couple of solar flares. So, and that was part of the psychic forecast anyway. And into the summer, there's going to be more. So there's going to be a lot of solar activity, a lot of changes, and that's going to lead to huge earthquakes and volcanoes in the next several months, which is on the psychic forecast. Watch the New Madrid fault around the Mississippi. Watch West Yellowstone. To the area around the Pacific Northwest, the Ring of Fire, all very active, as well as big storms, a lot of stuff with water, tsunamis, big Atlantic hurricane season, I believe, though may be modified a little bit by increased winds off of the Sahara and Sahara dust, so it may not be quite as active as what the official forecast is, but I still feel like one or two major storms around the Gulf or the southeast that could change the coast. So we're looking at the potential for hugely powerful storms this season, as well as very significant earthquakes that could change the landscapes and tsunamis. So it's a time to really prepare for that, basically. And I'll have more about that when I do the summer forecast in a couple of weeks, as well as future forecasts. But you can check out over here the June forecast, where I have a lot of upcoming information there. And on the other side of me, I'll post a video on what's going on off the Pacific Northwest or the New Madrid fault, one or the other. But anyway, I hope this information is helpful. If you like this, please like the video, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next.